Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders, a safe space for women to thrive in community where their voices and stories are heard. We're a sisterhood supporting each other to live our dreams and embody the sacred feminine to restore balance on our planet. Join us each week as we return to the unconditional love and guidance of our heart and our womb. I'm your host, Meredith Ram, and I invite you to walk this path of beauty, devotion, and service with us. I'm here today with Porsha Beed. She is a co-founder of Holistic Resistance and Grief to Action. She is a practitioner of love, grief work, and deep heart soul work. She is a mentor, love prophet, poet, spiritual healer, and facilitator who pulls from a spiritual ancestral lineage and the earth as guides to support and hold her as she works towards a vision of healing work that aids in the dismantling of racism and oppression. She weaves her African heritage and queer experiences into seeds that she sows in her authentic creative expressions through facilitation, ritual practices, poetry, and song. Thank you for being here, Porsha.
Thank you so much, Meredith. It's so sweet to be here with you.
Yeah. And I first met Porsha through Song Circle in Sebastopol, Northern California. Beloved, my muse in this community, met Porsha and Aaron and invited them to come up here. And we got to have a beautiful circle. And one of the things that really spoke to me was just how heart-centered you and Aaron were, and just leading that circle and doing this work. And I did the following day the workshop around more like anti-racism work, and then we did some private work together too. So we've gotten to know each other. And do you want to share anything about just like how did it come to be that sharing this work with song, and just how you and Aaron approach the work that you do?
Yes, thank you so much, Meredith. And I just appreciate hearing a little bit about the beginnings of how our relationship came into play through your lens. And so it's just really sweet to hear you go through that. So holistic resistance and the work of holistic resistance, and now our nonprofit Grief to Action, has always been deeply rooted in our heart work and also in the relationships that we're building. When we think about anti-racism work, one of the understandings that Aaron and I carried into our work initially was that racism cannot exist when we have deep relationships and connections and love for one another. And that is a place that we have worked very deeply to bring our work in through the lens of inviting in and offering spaces, questions, song circles around anti-racism work and centering anti-racism work, and understanding that relationships is a thread through that makes this work possible.
Yeah. And I really found that as we dove deeper into our work together, that I learned so much just from hearing your stories and hearing your perspective on things. And I feel like for a lot of people that haven't grown up in very diverse communities, there is a missing out on deep relationships of people who are different than them, or who have grown up with different backgrounds and see the world differently. And like, even just having that opportunity of getting to know each other better, it was like yeah, this is my friend. I want, to be there for this person and to learn and to protect. And I feel like it is those relationships that really help break down those barriers of
Mhm. Absolutely.
all of that dismantling. I think
Absolutely.
I think I remember one of the questions that came up in our work together, and I feel like I cried so much when we would get on the phone. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a question I remember leaving with one day of like, what did I miss out on because of systemic racism? And like
Right.
just realizing that, oh wow, like there were, because I grew up in a community that was mostly white, like what are the things that didn't get to happen in my childhood or my life because of just it wasn't really possible, the bonding and more
Mm.
diversity. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I imagine people listening um yeah, may have a similar background to me and to feel like, yeah, that what have
Mm.
I missed out on? And it can be very hard to bridge those relationships. And
Yes.
um, yeah, anything you want to
Yes.
share about that?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Meredith, for sharing your personal experience. And just, I do remember having that conversation with you and the grief that you were able to feel and be able to notice the grief of what was taken from you as a white identified person. And I think that's really, powerful to be able to speak from your perspective of noticing how racism and oppression, it doesn't just take and hurt and harm people of color. It's also harming white folks as well. And it's also taken from you as well. And I think when we understand that, and when we can visually see the ways that that oppression and white supremacy is hurting us all, I think it gives us a whole nother lens into the power of what it looks like to heal and to be with those relationships. And I want to touch a little bit on the the grief aspect. I believe that we are living in a culture that is learning how to value and respect and honor the process of grief. And what I have learned in the work that I have been doing through both grief to action and holistic resistance is that grief gives us access to awareness. And when we are allowing ourselves to grieve, it gives way for that wisdom of awareness to come through. And when we have awareness, that gives us an opportunity to create change. And once we are able to cultivate change, that is, well, actually, before we get to change, we have to heal, right? So there's this way that when we allow ourselves to grieve, it then bring forth a level of awareness. Wow, what was I missing? What was the wisdom in that? How can I sit deeper in and be willing to lean in deeper into this conversation of what my grief and the wisdom for my grief is offering me? And how does that give way to my healing? The places where now I'm entering into these relationships with Black women, with Black people, and having a different understanding of what I am now aware of because I allowed myself to grieve and see the ways that I actually want to have a better place of impact. And as we are able to heal, it then gives way to change. And the thing I love about change is it's a choice. We all have the opportunity and have multiple opportunities in a day to make a choice. And what I feel is rooted at the center of being willing to make that choice is saying, how do I reduce the amount of pain that is in the world? And not just how do I reduce, but what am I putting in its place? I want to put love there. I want to learn that. I want to learn how to love myself better so I can be able to love and hear this Black woman better. So I can be in relationship with someone who walks a different walk in life than I do. And I feel that these are conversations that our society are missing because we're not able to even sit with the massive cultural grief that is still needing to be processed so that we can get wisdom to then do what our work is, grief to action. Take that grief, alchemize it, and make something that is going to be healing and bring generational healing. That's the thing that gives me chills when I actually sit with the depth of wisdom that lies in our ability to be with grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And tell us more about what Grief to Action does. You have these retreats, right?
There are different offerings that we have at Grief to Action, but the root of Grief to Action and the work that we're doing is creating a space for people of color and centering people of color's grief, a space where they can come and have a sanctuary of safety to process both present and historical trauma that is in our bodies and that we're moving with, because we need that. We need to be able to move and be with one another in our healing journeys of processing grief in order to cultivate the next actions that help reduce the level of grief that we're holding in the first place. And so Grief to Action is a nonprofit that is centered on inviting in people of color to be able to work with each other and have a space to grieve and be amongst each other in our healing. And then to say, okay, what can we actionably build now? What can we put into action that is going to cultivate and bring healing? And so some of our actions and some of the actions that I'm currently bringing out of my own, because I in a lot of ways went through my own version, my own personal version of becoming Grief to Action. And in my journey, I have more and more listened to spirit because I'm a deeply spirit-led person. And spirit has brought to me the need of Black women's voices in the conversation of our revolutionary thinkings and the ways that we're trying to change the world. The absolute ways of curating and cultivating conversation that invites in another layer of healing and another layer of saying, hey, I can reach for your heart right here on this edge where it might be the places where usually one of us shuts down. How do we lean in closer? And I'm bringing that through the conversation of my Can You Hear Me deep dive series. And it is my desire to create Can You Hear Me deep dive series that I offer monthly to invite white identified folks to be able to join this conversation of what does it mean to come into conversation with a Black woman. I have had the blessing of working with individuals one-on-one. I've been with white people and their fears, their thoughts around Black women and what it looks like to try to hear Black women and why they can't hear Black women. And what I recognize is that they need a space to be able to actually sit in a container that is not riddled in shame, that is not riddled in blame, that is not riddled in guilt. And also, let's have a heart to heart and have a conversation. I have a variety of experiences where individuals have told me. I remember I was talking to a client and I asked them, "What do you think What do you think Black women feel when they see you? And I remember her response came from fear. It came from fear, it came from shame. And a lot of it was, I'm not worthy, I don't matter, all these things. And I said, is that what you think I see when I see you? And what I recognized is that in that moment, she had forgot that she was talking to a Black woman, because there was this place of shame and fear and guilt that actually caused a hindrance on how she could even be present with actively the Black woman who was speaking with her.
Mm.
And I said, do you think that there's a possibility that she actually may also appreciate your energy? Do you think it's a possibility that she may also want to deepen in relationship with you? Do you think it's a possibility she may also want to come closer to your heart? Was that anywhere in the possibility of what came up? She said, no, Porsha, that actually wasn't. Well, why? What stopped it? I felt a lot of shame. And so through my learnings, and I have one more story to share, as I was working with another client of mine, a white identified individual, white woman, and she was expressing to me about how she was just upset with how things were happening in the world. And she was like, Porsha, I went to Standing Rock, and like I worked hard, and I stood in front of, the people there, and took on the police, and I was ready to die for them. But what terrified me more so than dying or going to prison in that moment was to actually turn around and build a relationship for the people who I was standing in front of, trying to protect, trying to fight for.
Mm.
And I said,
Mhm.
hold on, let's just notice that for a minute. Just take the moment to notice. And so a lot of what I'm offering in the Can You Hear Me deep dives is, what can we notice? Where can we find awareness? I'm not interested in shaming you. I'm interested in coming closer. I'm interested in asking deeper questions and inviting in a deeper heart expansion in the places that actually make it possible for you to also have the ability to turn around and look at the person and say, I'm in this fight with you. I'm in this movement with you because I love you, because I see you, because I can hear you, because I have a relationship to you. Not just because this is what I want to do to get rid of my shame and my guilt and my fear.
Mhm.
We're missing a very important aspect, if that is how white people are choosing to move through the work. If that is the way that you choose to move, it's missing what I call the sustenance of what this work is. How do
Mhm.
we get to the roots? How do we get to the heart of what is needed and the
Yeah.
healing that is needed, so that you could feel that it is possible for you to actually be in deep relationship with these individuals that you say, that you put on your bumper stickers on your vehicles, Black Lives Matter, that you that you put the flag up, or that you put the banner up in your window that says Black Lives Matter. I remember when I was on tour, I asked people, I said, especially in the Northwest, I really felt it there. Everywhere I looked, in the grass and people's cars and their windows, I saw Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter t-shirts, Black Lives Matter. And I asked them, I said, I am so moved by the way that I feel, how much you all are constantly putting out into the world, how much you believe in this movement in Black Lives Matter. And I'm curious, what happens when that sign becomes me. When an actual Black woman shows up in your life and is no longer able to just be the letters, but you have a live, breathing human being who is actually inviting you to turn around and say, oh, that's Porsha. It's not just Black Lives Matter. Oh, that's Breonna Taylor. It's not just Black Lives Matter. Oh, that's Sandra Bland. It's not just Black Lives Matter. These are people. These are people's lives. These are people's hearts. And what am I doing in my heart and in my spirit and in my work and in my calling in more love for myself to be able to then give to others, that I can actually not be stagnated in the way that shame can stagnate me, but I can reach across those barriers and truly, genuinely try to see, hear, feel who this human being is, and not just leave it at a banner or a sign. And don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing that. We need those too. I'm just wanting to add, in addition to the signs, to the t-shirts, of what the internal work is that makes it possible for you to feel that Black Lives Matter in your heart when you're actively being brought to the conversations of Black lives and them mattering and their voices mattering and their healing mattering.
Mm.
And that's
Thank
why
you.
it's a deep dive, because we're diving.
Yeah. I feel like, yeah, just listening to you, I really feel the essence of what you're bringing. And I think so many people get to that point of maybe actually forming relationships, but then maybe avoid it or back away because the shame comes up. And it's hard to look at. And it actually requires those people to slow down, which you always tell me, slow down, and to be it. And yeah, so that's important work.
Thank you, Meredith. I really appreciate that. And I feel like you have in so many ways just like brought such active healing for me in that way, that you were willing, and I think that's the biggest thing I want to name to the white identified individuals who are listening to this podcast is you don't have to have it all figured out. What I'm desiring when you choose to be a part of my deep dives or any of my offerings that I am bringing to the world right now, what I am asking is to bring a willing heart. Are you willing? I so appreciate the power of will, because when one is willing, they could even not have the answer or know which direction to go, but that they are going to continue to move their hearts towards the direction that they feel is going to help manifest what is needed for that specific need, right? And you didn't know. That's the thing I love about our relationship is like, you didn't know me. You saw me and you were like, this Porsha. And I think I want to reach for her. Right. And I was like, yeah, Meredith, let's reach for each other. Let's reach for each other's hearts. And the truth of the matter is there was a willingness. There was a willingness to say, hey, we come from two completely different backgrounds. We have a whole different, as we say in holistic resistance, a different positionality. We have different experiences. And how do we still come close and reach for each other's hearts? And I want to be clear. Nowhere in this work was I like, how do we perfectly reach for each other's heart? I did not say perfect, not once in this conversation, right? Because I understand that it's going to take first of all, perfection is not even real. I just want to put that out there because I think that that's also rooted in the reasons why racism exists. Is I think perfectionism is also at the center of that, especially around individuals who are wanting to do good work. And when they feel like, oh, I'm not doing this right, I want to ask people like, what is the quote unquote only right way to do this work? Because I'm a Black woman and I'm still trying to figure it out, right? And there's so much to me in our relationship, going back to our relationship, that I saw your willingness to say, I may not know how to reach for this Black queer woman, but I'm going to be willing to. And I saw your opening of your heart to trust that my yes was a yes to you, that I was a yes to deepening and connection and being with your heart and mind. And I just sit with that with a level of understanding that it's so important. So when I invite deep dives such as, can you hear me? Can you feel me? Can you hold me? And these conversations of what stops white identified folks from hearing Black women. When I invite questions like this or these conversations, it's also an invitation. It's also an invitation to be willing to look within oneself and say, okay, right there where I want to shame myself, I'm not going to do it. Right there where I just want to opt out and say, I can't listen to Black women. I don't listen to Black women well. I'm out. I just want to remind you, you have someone who is saying yes to you. I'm saying yes to you. I'm saying yes to leaning in. I'm saying yes to the messiness. I'm saying yes to the healing. I'm saying yes to what it looks like to make what was your edge or our edge become our center, because our hearts can expand in a way that allows us to better hear, see, and hold each other. And in a society that has deeply rooted the conversation of not listening to Black women's voices and not listening to the wisdom that we bring that doesn't oftentimes just benefit us, but benefits the world, I recognize it's going to take time. I don't go into these deep dives thinking that, oh, it's going to be perfect and everyone's going to hear me and everyone's going to understand me and everyone's going to, leave and be like, oh, I clearly understood what Porsha was saying and I feel it. I'm coming with even the possibility of knowing that probably most white identified folks might even get 10% of what I'm saying, might even get 20% of what I'm saying and actually hear it. Well, why is that? Because I believe and because I have seen and because I have witnessed that 20% reaching 40%, that 40% reaching 50%, that 50% going back to 30%, and then shooting up to 70%. I have witnessed what it means to be in relationship and to keep having a willing heart to try to see and hear and hold each other. And I'm speaking from my lane because I am a Black woman and I come through the world and I'm treated in the world in the way that we treat Black women. And so I come from this lane. But we as a culture have a deep need to listen better to one another and to each other's experiences and not jump to defense and not shut down, but to actually practice listening across the board. So yeah. And also my life has always been that way. I've always started at, whatever 20% was. And I've seen the massive things I've been able to overcome to be who I am today. And so I know that it's in the human spirit that we are capable of creating and building a world that is based in compassion and love and listening and seeing each other. I know it's possible. Now, whether I found my life to see that is another conversation, but I know it's possible. And so I just want to make sure I'm doing my part while I'm here on the planet to help seed conversations in doing that work.
And it's very brave. I'm noticing too, just you coming forth and sharing this work. Do you ever, I'd love to hear just if there are those moments when you doubt yourself or you come forward and you work through it. And I know a lot of times I ask people on this podcast, they people have done a lot of courageous things. And
Mhm.
how is that for you? Just when the fear voices come up, and then it's like, no, I need to do this work.
Thank you for that question. As I take in that question, it goes back to being a spirit-led person. When one is spirit-led, when one is listening to their purpose, is listening to their calling on the planet, there is a force and energy of love that surrounds me every single day. And so, as a human being, absolutely I feel fear. Absolutely I feel doubts and I feel these things. But what is powerful is in comparison to the bigness of the love that I feel, the bigness of the hope that I feel, the bigness of the knowing. I was talking to an individual the other day and I said, I don't have to know exactly how the vision will happen or how it will come to play. I just have to know what feeds it and feed what I know is going to support the vision. And the vision being my ultimate liberation and healing journey as a Black woman and cultivating spaces for Black women in that. And I know that when I know, the best way I could say it is when I know that spirit's got me, I have an unwavering faith. And I also know that it's bigger than me. I know that I matter in it. And I also know that it's bigger than me. Both are true. And so to me, one of my biggest inspirations, you want to know what my biggest inspirations right now is I have a beautiful co-facilitator who's going to be with me on these Can You Hear Me deep dives. And she has a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
a young African American girl, and she's 7 years old. And when we were on our team calls and getting ready for these deep dives, she would start singing, and her little daughter would come up to her and just be like, "Mama, Mama, what are you singing? Why are you singing?" And there's just this way that I look at her and I'm like, "Oh, she gives me fire in my soul. Like, I'm doing this work for her. I'm doing this work for those little young Black women, those young Black girls that are often forgotten, that are often not heard, that are often left in circumstances that they utterly did not deserve. I'm creating a space for her to be able to still have a voice, not just at 7 years old, but when she's 15, when she's 20, when she's 30, when she's 40, that her voice matters and that she knows that, and that there is a space in the world that Black women's voices are continually uplifted, loved on, celebrated in ways that are way long overdue. And so that gives me the hope when I come up against resistance or if I come up against challenge, I think about my nieces and I think about their lives and what impact I want to have on the access and opportunities that I know that each and every single one of these young Black girls deserve, and that they won't be forgotten anymore. And if I have to be a Black woman and do what Black women do and be the first person to teach people and to model to people how to hold and hear and love and listen to Black women, then let it be so. Because one thing I know about love, which is where I'm coming from, I'm deeply rooted in love in this work. I'm taking on these conversations with love at the center. And also with my ancestors at the center. I'm not just taking on this work. Like right now, my name is going to be put on this podcast. But what a lot of folks can't see is that I have a variety of a whole line of Black women's names that are on this podcast that are coming through me into these conversations right now as we speak. And I feel their essence. And one of the greatest ancestors that has just been feeding me and giving me life in so many ways is Bell Hooks. Rest her soul. I never met Bell Hooks, and I feel like I have met her 1,000 times over in the spirit realm. Because the wisdom and the love and the just all about love alone transformed the way that I take on my work. I already had love, but there's a way that she brings a whole nother layer. And when you have ancestors like Maya Angelou at your back, Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, Octavia Butler, when you have a remembering, when you don't forget your lineage, when you don't forget the Black women's shoulders that you're standing on, when you don't forget that and you remember that, fear is much smaller than that. What my ancestors are bringing, and I am blessed to be the vessel and conduit to bring it, is so much bigger than any doubts that want to try to arise in me. And when I need more resourcing, I go directly to spirit. And I get that. So that's what I deeply lean into. And that I don't have to have it all figured out. And that's why I do go. And I've been in deep, deep communion with my ancestors about how to bring this work. How to bring this work to my white extended family members. How do I bring this work to y'all? And how do I bring it in a way that is generative in a healing way? And genuinely, I believe in my heart and spirit that we're there. So I'm excited. I am moved, and not excited as in like, oh, it's going to be so much like excitement. I feel like excited is maybe not the word. Maybe the word is I'm deeply grounded. That's what it is. I'm deeply grounded and I'm deeply rooted in knowing what is possible. And no, I don't have all the answers, but I am deeply willing to show up. And I'm deeply willing to put my heart out there and say, hey, do you want to try to reach for my heart as I reach for yours? I'm willing. And that's all I had to say. With spirit, yes, I'm willing. And that's what's deeply rooted for me.
Yeah. I can imagine there are some people listening that are feeling that desire to lean in. And would you just share how people can join the deep dive? And we, of course, will include links with the show notes, but anything you want to share about how people can lean in and join this series?
Yes, thank you so much, Meredith, for bringing and creating space for that. Yes, I will start by saying, kind of leading up to the deep dives, I want to first name that me and a sweet, amazing fellow spirit friend of mine are going to be doing a song power hour. And this is a virtual kind of song singing because I think that's also a significant part I wanted to name before going into that, is song and poetry is another form in which I'm bringing in the conversation of listening to Black women's voices. Because I realized through doing this work that sometimes it's hard for you to hear me when I speak to you like this. When I try to speak and just have a conversation, these are things that we're holding. Can you hear me? Can you hold me? But sometimes there's this way that I've seen it and I've witnessed it and it gives me chills. It's song. Song is a way that I am able to reach and touch hearts, and I've seen it. It's a way that I'm able to reach and touch hearts and be in relationship in ways that otherwise I couldn't reach some hearts and minds, just based off of the color of my skin and how I move through the world. But song is a beautiful interruption to barriers. I try to hold that. And so that's why I'm going to start the first offering with on Wednesday, September 28th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. We are going to be doing, me and my friend Lindsay Scott, who is a song leader and weaver of song in so many ways and profound friend of mine. We are going to be doing a song power hour, in which I will also be sharing about the Can You Hear Me deep dives and the work that I'm doing a little bit on that as well, but really rooted in song. And that's going to be Wednesday, September 28th. And that is on Facebook. So I'm going through the Facebook events. These are all Facebook events, and I've given you the links. And like you said, you'll link all that information. And then going into the first deep dive, our first deep dive is Can You Hear Me? And that is going to be on October 1st. And that deep dive is going to be at 12 p.m. Pacific time to 2 p.m. Pacific time. And that conversation is really going to be centered on listening, right? What does it mean to listen to Black women? And then our next deep dive is going to be October 7th. And that is Can You Feel Me? And this deep dive is going to look at the conversations and ways that Black women have been deeply, chronically overtouched, and the ways that systems of oppression have really extracted, monetized in so many ways the Black woman's body for the benefit of white people and white supremacy. And these are conversations that we're going to be leaning into Friday, October 7th, from 5 p.m. Pacific time to 7 p.m. Pacific time. And our last deep dive for the October series is going to be Can You Hold Me? And this really leans into, I really appreciate ending with Can You Hold Me? As I said them, it helped me really hold that I appreciate is, how do we bring that all together? You know, what does it mean to actually hear and listen and hold these stories? What does it mean to hold what it means to be with a Black woman's voice, understanding the places of her being chronically overtouched and reducing that labor and that emotional labor and trauma that is being put on Black women's bodies on a daily basis. And that is our third deep dive that we will be offering for October, and that is October 15th from 12 to 2 p.m. Pacific time. All of these links I will be sending to you, Meredith, and you can link those. Mm-hmm. And that is the deep dive series for October. And I have the deepest desire to see how folks' hearts and spirits and minds show up and want to be with these conversations in the ways that keeps us in a place of heart-centered embodiment and reaching for each other's hearts.
So beautiful. I was thinking that usually I close these conversations with a prayer, but I'm wondering if today you would want to close it with a song. And before that, also, I just would like to ask if you have any closing words, anything that you would love to leave the people who are here and listening? And, some of these people might just be putting their first step into the realm of anti-racism work, and some might be more experienced. And
Mm-hmm.
any pieces of wisdom or that you would like to leave them with?
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for that. Mm. I think I want to invite individuals to sit with the gift of presence, sit with the gift of your breath, and let that be anchors of rooting you into this work. Oftentimes in social justice work and anti-racism work, I'm spending a lot of time helping white identified folks realize that this is not a sprint, but this is a marathon. This is a lifetime work. And I'm interested in deepening relationships, not just for you to come to my deep dive, not just for you to show up temporarily. I'm doing the radical revolutionary thing of building relationships that last a lifetime. And that is rooted in this work. And another thing that has been working through my own spirit that I want to invite into your hearts and spirits as you exit this podcast and being with me and being with what is on my heart right now is gentleness and forgiveness for oneself. Try to do your best to lean into that because it really unshackles the places where shame and guilt and blame can manifest and take root and interrupt your good work that you're trying to put into the world. And know that you matter in this work. You so deeply matter in this work. And we need you in this work. So I want to just remind, because we know this, sometimes we just need to be reminded of it. So I just want to remind folks of that. And what I want to say to the Black women and women of color that are also listening to this podcast is thank you and I'm with you. Thank you and I'm with you. And I will continue to do my part in showing the world and reteaching the world what it means to love us and hold us well. And I'll pause there.
Yeah, just receiving that. Yeah, I definitely have had some experiences of dear friends who start doing this work, and then all this, like, it's kind of a strong word, but self-hate can come up. And
Mm-hmm.
and just that piece around forgiveness, I think, is so important in healing, and knowing that, yeah, we all came into certain systems and we are doing our best and we're learning and uncovering, and it's okay to slow down and to forgive ourselves in those moments when we're holding a lot of yeah, that hate energy for ourselves.
Mm.
um, and I'd love to open the space if you have a song that you'd like to leave us with today.
Mm. I would like to share my song that I use in my meditation and I use in my prayer and my spiritual practice daily. I remember when I was going through my own grief to action process and becoming and awakening, spiritual awakenings, um, I needed somewhere I felt I could be heard, I could be listened to, my voice mattered. And Spirit kept saying, come to me, come to me. I had you when you were born and I have you now. And that's the other thing I want to say to everyone listening to this podcast is go to your source when you're feeling depleted. Go to the places that resource you. And for me, my source is spirit. My source is God. My source is the ocean. My source is prayer. But what your source is, go to that. And another source is song. Song and music and poetry is a source for me. So I want to share with you one of the places and one of the conversations through song that I was able to have with Spirit. And every single time, Spirit reminds me, I got you. I can hear you. I can hold you. Can you hear me? Can you feel me? Yes, Spirit, hold me close. Do you love me? Do you trust me? Yes, Spirit, hold me close. Yes, I want you. Yes, I need you. Oh, Spirit, hold me close. Can you hear me? Can you feel me? Yes, Spirit, hold me close. Spirit, hold me close. Hold me close. Hold me close. Hold me close. Yes, I want you, and yes, I need you, oh Spirit, hold me close. Can you hear me? Can you feel me? And Spirit, hold me close. Do you love me? Do you trust me? Yes, Spirit, hold me close. Oh, Spirit, hold me close. Yes, Spirit, hold me close.
I'll just invite us to breathe it into our hearts. And just feeling the gratitude for all the work you're doing, Porsha. Thank you for continuing to show up and be so guided by Spirit. Thank you for sharing your beautiful gifts, your voice with us today. Just deep bow, many blessings. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Meredith, for creating space for my voice. And thank you for the beautiful connection and willingness to lean into connection and relationship with me. And this was special to me because we have had time together. And so I just feel a lot of gratitude in the ways that our connection and relationship and heart space has been able to grow closer over time. So I want to say thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you to each and every single one of you that have taken time out of your day and just to listen to me. Thank you for listening. And I appreciate you all. And I'm continuously on my journey of my healing, being a love prophet in this world. And I am so honored to be with you all today. Thank you.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. If you liked it, share it with a friend or leave us a review on iTunes. You can also follow along on Instagram at Meredith Rom and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com to be sure to receive all the new and inspiring content. Thanks again for being here. It's an honor to walk this path with you.